The Durian Heat, bringing big ideas, critical opinions in Southeast Asia. Hi, this is Arlene and you're with us at Durian ASEAN, where we will discuss more issues, pressing issues in Southeast Asia. Today we are going to focus in Malaysia, where we are talking about justice for the deaf, those who die in custody, in police custody. We have with us Tarmizi as well as Arul from Parti Sosialis Malaysia. Perhaps a bit of introduction about your background. So, hi.
Hi, hello.
So, Arul, so share with us about your background and your involvement in the case of death in custody.
Okay, I'm actually still with SUARAM, handling issues of police powers. And in SUARAM, we have been monitoring cases of death in custody. And quite rampantly, these issues was highlighted in the year 2000 onwards. And we are still handling it because death in custody continues to happen in Malaysia.
It's a never-ending story.
Yes. So I've been more involved in issues of police powers, including training on rights of people when dealing with police, as well as on issues on police reforms. Yep.
So what about you, Tarmizi?
Hi, I'm Tarmizi. So basically, I'm just joined the SUARAM around 6 months, starting from last year. So when I first joined the SUARAM,
you are part of the Right to Justice Coordinator.
Yeah, I'm the Right to Justice Coordinator. So basically, that my focus, what I'm focusing that about the death in custody and abuse of police power. So that the two main thing that every time we have cases like that, so I will conduct and manage and also monitor the case.
So every case or only selected cases?
Basically, we try to do as much as we can.
And the cases are centering more on the Klang Valley area or the whole of Malaysia?
Basically the whole of Malaysia. Yeah, the whole of Malaysia.
Interesting, because the topic, when you talk about death in custody, of course the first thing that will come into everyone's mind would be the infamous case of the death of Teo Beng Hock. But since Teo Beng Hock, actually more and more cases had been appeared, but very seldomly raised in the media or even in among the government or civil society. But why do you think a lot of people are not aware of death in custody, or they choose not to aware of it?
See, I think one difference why the Teo Beng Hock case got so much of publicity was because he was an aide to a political a member of parliament. You see, in most cases, the public looks at those who are caught in death in custody are criminals, and most of the time the police have their version about this person. Though we believe that everyone has a right to life, and that is a very fundamental human rights. But in our country, when there's a death in custody, the police immediately would come out with its version of how that happened. And most of the public might just feel that this is just a criminal dying, or he might have done something wrong. So it's not as much highlighted. Whereas such things, I remember that I think in Korea, the Attorney General resigned when there was one death in custody.
Just one.
So that's such a serious thing, and the country Prime Minister makes a public apology. Because life is seen as something very crucial. But here, we are getting statistics every year. It's not improving.
A lot of Malaysians are really concerned with the crime rates in Malaysia. So when it comes to the statistic, if you can just share with our listeners, what are the crime rates in Malaysia and how frequent people are being hauled over by the police and being questioned?
Alright, basically, if you look at the statistic, we could look at the statistic. we have a lot of cases that hidden by the police. Okay. Sometimes we have few cases that is not reported by the police, but we got from the family, right? So every time when we have a assembly at the parliament, so we will ask the home minister about the how much we say as a statistic, how much figures that death in custody happen in Malaysia. So basically, if you see the statistic, it's very terrible.
Can you offer?
Share?
Yeah. Can you share
okay,
with us?
I give you an example. So such, I think from 2000, right, from 2000 until 2014, we have 209 cases that death in custody. So usually if we look 2011, 2011 we have 11 cases, 2012 we have 19 cases, 2013 we have 12, and 2014 we have 14. And if you want to know, so we just started 2 months for this year, January and February, so we have 5 cases that death in custody happen now. So it's very terrible, because if we look at every years, there is no sign that the cases will decrease.
In comparison with those who die in police custody and the rate of crimes, is it do you consider it as very high? Because what if there are actually more crimes being committed, but those who died are just those who are the unfortunate ones in police custody?
You see, the crime rate is statistics given by the police, and at times the police statistics claim that crime has gone down. Sometimes it says that crime, So, but for us, if you look at general public, you see today that most places people are living more in a guarded community, gated community, You see the lot of issue places where people have given memorandum, like in the state of Johor, the people have asked saying that the situation of crime is terrible, So if you look at that, what we could see is at one stage, crime is in the increase, no doubt about it. Our question always is whether the police force, whether they can handle crime. Similar the way they handle public assemblies and freedom of assemblies. There seems to be some priority wise. There seems to be some. At certain times you see so much police force is there, so many of them. And then if you compare to crimes, so I think the priority of the force is another question. So I think going back to the issue of death in custody, I think. Because death in custody is like something like you put someone to a death sentence without being charged, without going through a due process. It's very serious, even though the person can be a criminal or whatever. Maybe they are just arrested for us
as being a suspect.
Or maybe a crime they committed, which may be imprisoned for maybe 2 years or 6 months or maybe 2 days. But by dying, you are given a death sentence.
How frequent it is if you compare to the years that you mentioned since 2000 and prior to 2000? Is it something that has been a norm since the early days as well?
See, one good thing is that people are now more aware. People report death in custody, and people highlight these issues to groups like SUARAM, SUARAM and all that, compared to some years back. So we maybe today more people are reporting these cases because there's more awareness, social media and all that. And previously there was not much of awareness on this. And for me, 5 cases, that means 2 deaths a month, 2.5 deaths a month. The first 2 months of 2015 is quite
alarming.
Very alarming. And this one is only death in custody in prison and in lockup. we don't know about detention centers, like in migrant detention centers. I'm sure the statistics is much higher.
You want to add something?
Yeah. Okay, I just want to add something. So, based on the statistic that we have for this year, so 4 peoples is a local.
This year or this month?
This year.
This
I
year,
mean,
okay. Since January
until February. So we have 5 cases. 4 is a local peoples, and 1 from African. Okay, and we have 2 Malays and 2 Indians. I mean, sometimes maybe we say that this happened because this is Indian, right? Based on the race.
They blame on the race.
They blame based on the race. But basically, if you see the record, there is not only about the race. It is not only about the Indian, but we will see a lot of peoples that, I give you examples. On November last year, Syed Muhammad Azlan, he just arrested only 3 hours before he died. So basically, the death in custody is not only about the race, but it is about the abuse of police power, and it is about the integrity of police. It's very important.
Interesting that you raised that question. So are you making a statement that majority, in terms of statistic, majority of those who die in custody, excluding the foreigners, are actually the Malays?
We have a little cases for foreigner, but basically the most of the cases happen to the local peoples.
To the local.
But just to, you see, if you look at numbers of people who've died in police custody, the highest number are Malays. But you look at the ratio of the race, including population, because the Indian population is
smaller,
about 8% or 7%. Based on that, the ratio, that means the Indian will be quite high. But I think this is also consistent with the number of people who go to lockups. In most countries, people who are in the lower marginalized community, most of them will end up in the lockup.
And what about the states that arrested these people? Which states have the highest ratio of death in custody?
Okay, basically we have that we can see a few states that very high cases. Okay, so I give you an example. Happen in Penang. Basically, we have like this year, we have 3 cases, 3 or 5 cases happen that based on Penang.
So are you saying that this year from January to February, all of them are from Penang? Or majority?
Majority from Penang. So, and last year from Penang also, we have same police station. I thought same police station, around 4 cases. So we only can raise 3 cases, but one of the cases the family doesn't want to make it publicized.
But you see, like last year, Penang scored the highest. And it's alarming that this year they're still leading. That means something
not a good thing.
It's
either because they have a serial killer or psychopath act as a policeman, or it's just the government didn't really care. But is it under the local government? Not local. Is it under state government or the federal government when it comes to what happened within the lockups?
You see, police basically lockups, normally under the Police Act. Those who are responsible when there's a death is the officer in charge of the station, number 1. That means the Ketua Balai, the OCPD, and the CPO of the state. But if last year Penang was the highest, that means they should have done a lot of reforms to ensure it doesn't happen again. but they're still leading this year. So that seems there is not much of reform. And also we know, recently, you see, those days police used to have lockups in every station. Every police station should have a lockup, and most district police station will normally keep detainees. But now they've changed the format. They have built what they call it berpusat. That means central detention center where they gather all the prisoners, those suspected of crime, put them together. So that they felt by doing that, they can better monitor, have better system. But that's not happening, Now we have Jinjang and all that. With this berpusat, the more centralized thing, it is supposed to ensure there is less abuse of...
but actually the abuse increases.
It's continuing. So that shows that something is wrong.
We'll take a short break. When we return, we will discuss more. What is the real problem?
The Durian Heat, bringing big ideas, critical opinions in Southeast Asia.
Hey, this is Arlene and we are back again with Arul from Parti Sosialis Malaysia and also Tarmizi. And continuing our discussion on death in custody, rights for the justice. I want to know, what are the infamous cases of death in custody that you can highlight? I know you highlighted a few just now, the ones that happened between January and to February. But if you can share some of the infamous cases where the police really abused their power.
See, one of the very early case of death in custody was about this mechanic. There was this case was handled by Karpal Singh, and there was a robbery, a Maybank robbery. And Maybank apparently paid the police an additional amount of money so that they could catch these people. So they cut this guy who's an aircon mechanic because they thought he knew the way how to get into the Maybank. He had, they fractured, about 50 pieces of his bones.
Wow.
And he was one of the very serious case.
Seems like a boxing match happening.
And then the police were all charged, and then but the most senior policemen were not charged. This was more all the lower ranking policemen were charged. And subsequently, because of massive public pressure, then they reviewed the case, and the charge was a bit enhanced. Initially it was very low. I know Justice Vora was the one handling the case. Of course, there's other case like Francis Udiapan. That was another famous case where he was from Brickfield Police. The police claimed that he ran off, jumped into the Brickfields River and died. So Francis Udiapan was another very serious case. And since then, there's many cases, famous case like Coogan case. Coogan's case was a famous case. There was some conviction on the police part. And then before that there were many other cases, but this were, I think, some of the main highlights.
I'm curious why police use brute force when it comes to doing investigation towards these suspects. Is it part of the ethics and norm of their job?
You see, I wouldn't say that all death in custody is because of brutal police force. Some is because of pure negligence. That means a person would need medicine and they do not get access to medicine, or they are suffering in the cell. They were not taken to the hospital in time. So these are some of the... See, most of the cases the police claim that they died of, they are drug addicts, they got ulcer. These are the reasons, medical reasons. Cases of police abuse is there, definitely, And normally that doesn't happen in the lockup. It happens in the investigation place or somewhere. But if you look at a lot of cases we come across, I have a case where this guy just went through an operation and he needs a kind of tablet to thinner his blood. He did not have the tablet. He just died. He was just arrested with a group of people in Cameron Highlands. Just because he did not have the tablet to thinner his blood, he died. He was, and the recent case of Chandran was a very interesting case because there was a child, he was actually talking on behalf of a family member who actually took a child for custody, and they didn't do it through the proper channel legally. So the police, when he went to inquire, he was arrested. He was not even, and then because he did not get his medicines and whatever, and he was complaining, and no one took him to the hospital, he died. So it's also negligence, neglect.
But do they actually know their role if the suspect needs medical attention? The police, do they know their role to seek for proper and urgent medical attention if the suspect needs it?
You see, upon a person is remanded in the lockup, they normally have to go in front of magistrate, and most times when the police when you are arrested, the police will record in a book. They'll ask you, do you have any medicine? The problem is you have to pass this medicine to the police. You don't hold it, you see. You pass the medicine to the police, and the police are supposed to give you time to time the medicine. In most cases, they don't, because there'll be, like hundreds of people in the lockup. So it is, so like if I am in detention, I have to shout and call, Even recently when I was in the lockup, I had medicines. I could not initially find people to communicate with the police that I need to go out to get my medicine, So this is someone...
Because you are trapped with a few other people, is that the case?
Because they put me in a cell and there's no policeman monitoring the place. If there's a policeman, I would have called him, If something like that can happen to an activist.
Can you imagine?
Can you imagine?
Just an ordinary person.
Yeah.
What are other cases that you can share with us, Tarmizi?
So basically I just joined the SUARAM only 6 months, but I have few cases that I think is very interesting. If we want to say that the police has abused their power, so we can look at the cases like Syed Muhammad Azlan last year on November, because he suspected by the police that he one of the person that what we call it as a fighting. They have something fighting at some place, and police suspect that he one of the person that who involved with the groups. Okay, so police arrest him, and then around 3 a.m. at the morning, early morning, and around 6 a.m. he died. Okay, he died. Okay, and 6:30 a.m. the police bring his father to the lockup and try to investigate his father. All right. The problem is when his father want to see his son, the police was not allowed his father.
The police did not allow.
At all. But basically on that time
he already died.
He already died, and the police know that he died. But after 6 hours, around 1:30 p.m. the police mentioned it to the family that the Syed Muhammad Azlan was died. So you can see we can see a loophole there, that something curious, that when I want to see my son, right? I want to see my son. Why you didn't allow? I want to see my son.
Why do you think there's a deliberate attempt by the police to cover up the death in custody?
You see, the issue of death in custody is
it being done by a group of police, or just one crazy police who could be a psychopath?
It depends lah. You see, I feel that in the case of death in custody, there's hardly any witnesses. One is whether you can get other inmates to witness, to say things which normally you can't find. The only witnesses to a death in custody case would be other policemen or a CCTV, which is controlled by the police. So in situation like that, it's very difficult for us to find how the person died, because there's lack of witnesses. What has happened over the years in this country is, now we have a coroner court system, which we've been fighting for a long time. We need experts, we need medical experts who can actually, do real investigation to find out what kind of injury this person got. Only very recently we have a coroner court system, but even that is so in an early stage. You don't have experienced judges handling cases. They're not medically trained as well. They might know a bit about being a judge with they need to know medical knowledge, forensic knowledge as well. So for me, coming back to the question whether the police, I think the whole problem is the system, how the police force the system, because if you look at during Ahmad Badawi's time, a royal commission was set up. There were 125 recommendations. Some of this recommendation has been implemented. For example, nowadays you cannot take 113 statements.
What is that?
It's a statement of confession. That means, in what happens previously, someone will be bashed up, so the person will confess, and that can be admitted in court. Today they say no.
So you have to thank Badawi for that.
Yes, you have to thank Badawi, because that Royal Commission of Police with 12 members, very good people, came up with very good recommendation. But some of the key recommendations, like the IPCMC, for the independent commission, is not there, which is problematic. So that means in a case of police death in custody, who is going to investigate the police? So we need an independent commission to investigate police abuse of power. If you don't have those in place, then everybody guess it's done by a psychopath, or it's done by a group or an individual. So this is the problem we have today.
We will take a short break. When we return, we will talk more about the police system in this country.
The Durian Heat, bringing big ideas, critical opinions in Southeast Asia.
Hey, this is Arlene. You are with us again at our Durian Heat, talking about justice for the death in custody. And of course with me again is Arul from Parti Sosialis Malaysia, and also Tarmizi, Rights for the Justice.
Right to Justice.
Right to Justice coordinator.
Yeah.
So, talking about the police forces, I want to know, in your opinion, why do you think police forces in Malaysia act the way they are towards either suspects or criminal gangs and all that? Based on your encounter or experiences talking to people.
Okay. Wait. Sorry. Can you repeat it again?
Why the police forces in Malaysia act the way they are?
Okay.
As in, like, they use a lot of brute force, and they use a lot of intimidation in terms of when they speak to criminal gangs or suspects in the custody. In the custody,
okay. But basically, usually, when I talk with my friends and discuss about this, some of people that they will say that it's okay if the police tortured the detainee. I mean, detainee. Why? Because the people was detained had does something bad. Okay, but I just want to mention what that they are thinking, right? They are based on my experience. But the problem is why I think the police act like that, because there is no independent commission that not control but not manage but monitor the police. Because if we look now, police under the Home Minister, right? Under the monitoring from on the Home Minister. But the problem is, we can see this such a lot of power, right? There is no one can critique them. There is no one can charge them as well, right? So if we look at back on this based on the system, I think the main problem is because police have a lot of power, and second one is there is no one independent commission that to monitor the police bodies.
It's funny because Malaysia could be like one of the most religious nation in Southeast Asia, and it's really an irony because religion is part of the core values of a lot of Malaysian citizens. But why, even with religion, with religious a lot of religious NGO, a lot of religious political party members, when it comes to issue like death in custody, people seem to be very silent about it. Why the irony?
I think I wouldn't really say that religion, because in many religions there are also cruel practices being done. When religion promotes death of people, so I wouldn't really say religion is a benchmark for human rights. But having said that, I think here is we have a system where there's no freedom of people to express opinion. If you have an independent media, for example, you see here when people are tweeting, people are exposing things in Facebook, they are being threatened. So they are
by the IGP.
Freedom of expression. So in the sense, if we have who to monitor the police force, to create awareness, it would be good to have an independent media out there, which is not controlled by any political parties or by the ruling party, which can actually advocate all these things and not being charged for sedition, for example. That would be a way to balance up. You see, for me, the bigger problem with the police force is, number one, they are very instruction orientated rather than investigation orientated.
What is instruction orientated?
That means they just take instruction. So the policeman below, as long he's told to do something, he doesn't act professionally. He doesn't act according to his rules, because as a profession, for example, at one point in Malaysia, there was instruction to arrest those wearing yellow shirt or those wearing black shirt in Perak sometime back. There is no law which says you cannot wear black or yellow. But because of an instruction, which is very bad, stupid instruction, the policeman below has to arrest people wearing black. And when you ask them what was my offense, they said instruction. Similarly, when we were riding bicycle, those riding bicycle to Parliament were stopped because you're riding bicycle. What law are they for? There's no law, instruction, is it? So unless the police can be very professional, follow the rules of law, and
the actual rule of law,
rule of law, then the public will have some support. Here today, there's a feeling that you can just let go because corruption, money can buy over policemen, even judges and all that. The other thing about, for me, I noticed one problem is for Muslims especially, the religion request them to accept faith, which I think most religion do that, So in a sense, so when someone dies in custody, it ends up being his faith.
So they have this fatalistic mentality,
yes,
which actually defeat the purpose of religion.
True. And you see, for a death in custody, the best evidence is the dead body. That's the biggest evidence. A lot of Hindus also cremate the body. We tell them you shouldn't cremate, you should preserve the body. Like in Teo Ben Ho's case, that his body was able to be taken out, exhumed, and went for a second post-mortem. So in most cases, especially like a Muslim family and a Hindu, Buddhist, they cremate the body for Hindus and Muslims. Buddhists. You have already, that's the only evidence you have, the dead body.
Maybe the awareness is not that high among the public, but let's focus on civil society and government. What about awareness among these authorities? Have they really done much to address the issue of the police, the brutality of the police system?
You see, the awareness have definitely increased, in the sense that because the civil society is not keeping quiet. At one point, the AG said everybody dies in the police custody, you have to have an inquest. The problem is the police force itself need to undergo a complete revamp. the IGP and the deputy IGP are handpicked by the Prime Minister. Cannot be the way. If you want the police force to be independent, it has to be independent from the ruling party. How could you say police force can be independent when they arrest the opposition leader, for example? You know, there's reason to show that. So the people know that the appointment of the IGP and the deputy IGP is a political appointment, rather than they are the best cop going through their own rank and file. So until you come to that stage, that means whatever happens is going through instruction. From murder of Al-Tuntuya, you ask Hirul, he says, I've been instructed. So from the highest profile of case to the anything happens in this country, it's clear that the force itself is not independent.
So what's the way forward to address this? Because the challenges seems to stem that the power that lies within the police force or within the Home Ministry and IGP is too huge that even politicians from the opposition side and civil society are still unable to sort of balance out or at least to contain this power. If you were to have a way out of this issue, what should Malaysia do?
See, the first thing is to implement the IPCMC, because the IPCMC is not something which the opposition came out with. It is something which the Prime Minister called a Royal Commission, 12 members of the Royal Commission.
Which Prime Minister, by the way?
Badawi. And then they had a former, I think 4 judges were part of the committee. There were civil society members part of the committee. There were ex-police IGP part of the committee. And they came out with this law. It's already there, everything there. You just have to go to court, you just have to go to Parliament and pass this law. And IPCMC will be implemented. But today there's no political will to implement the IPCMC, because the police force have already warned the Prime Minister. He says, if we go on the IPCMC, we can't work, So for the police, for the political party, they are listening to the police in not implementing the IPCMC. They're not listening to the public, actually. I think the public would want a professional police force, and it is time they implement that. Only then can, whatever the police does, there'll be some confidence in what they say.
What about you? Any other suggestion besides through the implementation of IPCMC?
But basically, I think the important thing is IPCMC. But I think the most important is the civil society.
Awareness on the ground.
They need to highlight this issue to the media. And after that, because if we based on my experience, if we look at the death in custody, if we post at the Facebook, we can see a lot of comments that condemn the case,
the victims.
The victims, because because you can see a lot of peoples now, such I would say that the awareness more increased, right? The people more want to know what happened in custody, right? So, as a civil society, I think we need to more hard work on this. We need to promote these issues. We need to campaign these issues to the society. We need to do the public forum. We need to the campaign. I really interested if we can have the interview session with the such as lawyer. We meet them, and then we do ask a few questions and make a video, such as we can ask them about what is the coroner's court.
So a lot of the focus should be on the awareness campaign, especially to reduce the stigmatization towards the victims, especially when you talk about criminal suspect. You already brand them as someone who is the bad guy. So if he die, his life is less valuable than us. But in reality, everyone's life is valuable and precious. And one thing, just quick response from both of you. If you were to share this, the issue on death in custody towards the younger generation and try to gauge with them and get aware, try to ensure that they are aware of this case and it can happen to anyone, what is the best hashtag you will put?
Right to life.
Right to life?
Yeah. I have the same idea with you, basically.
So
right to life.
Let's kickstart this. Right to life.
Right. Because everybody have their right. I think the life is unalienable. I mean, there is no one can take it from you, and because life is natural things that you got from God by birth, right? You got from by birth. I mean, there is no police go to you and I give you a life, right? Because and there is no one that said that okay, your mother go to you, I give you a life. No, but the life is you got from God, and there is no one can take it from you. And we need to respect. We need to respect the rights of the peoples, the right of peoples. I mean, such Arul, my friends. I need to respect him. He have he have a right to life. So if everything happened to him, I need to help him.
And any last message for hashtag the right to life?
No, I think that when we meet families of death in custody, it's only then we know that how precious is the life of the person who died. Because as an outsider, if you're just looking at someone died in the police,
it's just another statistic.
You might have just done something wrong and all that, But it's not true. Most people in Malaysian detention are not criminals; they are remand prisoners, and it's sad that we don't take this thing seriously. And death in custody goes beyond race, religion, and we have to make sure people understand that it can happen to anybody. You can be accidentally arrested for speeding, end up in a lockup, and you could die the next minute. So it is unfortunate. These are things we can avoid. Not like the 370 or you mourn. The whole country mourns about the death of people dying. But this is something which we can avoid, death in custody.
So thank you very much, Arul. Thank you, Tarmizi, for sharing your view. And all the best, and hopefully more awareness will be happening among Malaysians.